Here is the motion picture record released by the United States Navy of the havoc wrought by the Japs' sneak sky and sea raid on Pearl Harbor, America's mid-Pacific naval bastion. On December 7th, 1941, Japan, like its infamous Axis partners, struck first and declared war afterwards.
When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, a rush began to mobilize troops, build aircraft and weapons, and provide training bases necessary to win the war. At an elevation of roughly 5,200 feet, Casper, Wyoming made an ideal choice for high-altitude bomber training. The Army Air Force settled on a 2,902 square-acre site 9 miles west of town. The area was notorious for rattlesnakes and covered in sagebrush, but its flat terrain and consistent wind made it an ideal location for an airbase. The airbase was hastily erected, and row upon row of black tar paper buildings rose where before only pronghorn antelope had roamed. The base was a self-contained city with enlisted, officer, Women's Army Corps, and segregated cantonments. It also included a bowling alley, theater, recreation hall, post exchanges, station hospital, parade ground, maintenance facilities, railroad spur and warehouses, fire stations and crash houses, parachute rigger sheds and tower, celestial navigation, and link trainers, to name a few. Base construction moved so quickly that it was able to open nearly 2 weeks ahead of schedule on September 1, 1942. Although there were no airplanes yet, nor a full staff, the necessary buildings for base operation had been completed. Recreational buildings, such as the Enlistedmen Service Club, were furnished exclusively through donations. Local furniture retailers donated tables, chairs, and sofas to the Army for use at the airbase. Upon activation, the base grew to almost a third the size of its host city of Casper. Manning the base on an average day would be a 2,250 Army Air Forces garrison and around 800 civilians. During World War II, the population of the city of Casper was roughly 18,500 people, and at peak training times, the population of the base would sometimes grow as high as 6,000. This tremendous influx of people from all over the United States triggered an exchange of culture and a broadening of ideas for the residents of Casper. Dr. Fred Hagler and his wife Mary were among the first to arrive at the new airbase. Originally from Nebraska, they moved from Boise, Idaho to Casper in August 1942 with their 2 small children in a staff car. Fred graduated from medical school in 1936 and served as a first lieutenant flight surgeon for the airbase. When he arrived in Casper, the base commander, Colonel Moore, was the only other officer present. Fred guided the construction of the station hospital, a critical facility to keep the young airmen healthy and in the air. During their stay in Casper, Mary became the founding president of the Officers' Wives Club and planned entertainment and fundraising for the base. On one occasion, they successfully raised enough funds to purchase a complete set of new sports equipment for the base: basketballs, baseballs, footballs, etc. During her 2-year tenure as president, the group also organized fashion shows at the Officers Club downtown, where Mary was frequently a model. Mary reminisces that there were social things going on all the time to keep their spirits up. Part of her duty was also to help welcome the base's visiting dignitaries and celebrities, including Walter Abel, Jinx Falkenberg, and the Ritz brothers. The airbase also played host to Bob Hope and Gene Autry, who both performed in the airbase theater. Gary Cooper paid a secret visit to the airbase hospital to chat with the sick and wounded, without causing a ruckus to spread through town. The Enlisted Servicemen's Club was a welcome addition to the base in August 1943. It gave enlisted men a place to relax, write letters, call home, and even enjoy a drink from the soda fountain. All of the furniture was donated by local Casper businesses. Having previously painted murals in the base chapel and the officers' mess, Corporal Leon Tebbets was asked to liven up the Servicemen's Club with a series of murals. He was approached by Major Davidson of the Special Service Section.
The base commander wants the Servicemen's Club dressed up a bit and has suggested the possibility of murals. Come up with something, Teb. Something that isn't military, but of interest to civilians. The commander wants to promote goodwill between the citizens of Casper and our Army personnel. Have any thoughts?
Tebbets was quick to suggest a series chronicling the history of Wyoming. Major Davidson heartily approved and instructed Tebbets to order his supplies and gather additional artists should he require them. 22 historical events are depicted in the murals, ranging from the creation of the Earth according to the Arapaho legend, all the way through Casper Army Air Base in 1944. This would serve to both educate the thousands of crewmen who passed through the base on the history of the cowboy state, as well as a sign of appreciation to the city of Casper for the positive relationship between the base and the townspeople. 4 artists, Leon Tebbetts, J.P. Morgan, David Rosenblatt, and William Donich, divided up the murals and each worked on different scenes. Their artistic backgrounds ranged from professional to amateur, but all produced stunning visual representations of Wyoming history using the bare minimum of materials. Oil paint was quite costly at the time, so only 2 of the 22 murals were actually done in oil paints. Another was completed in oil pastel, and the rest were done in a combination of chalk and actual Wyoming earth. The project was begun in December 1943 and finished 6 months later in June 1944. As a testament to the quality of supplies and the artist's skills, these murals can still be seen today, nearly 75 years later, in excellent condition at the Wyoming Veterans Museum. On an ordinary day at the base, around 800 civilians would be employed in various capacities. The base's fire department was staffed by civilians, as were various maintenance departments, such as the carpentry shop foreman and the furnace repairman. Women often worked in the medical units or served as secretaries doing clerical work for the various base units. However, women were not limited to stereotypical women's work positions. Casper Army Air Base also had a staff of Rosie the Riveters, who repaired B-17 and B-24 bombers as they became damaged during training exercises. The base also employed a female parachute packer to pack and issue parachutes to flight crews. The April 28, 1944 edition of the Slipstream Air Base newspaper proudly announced that 20 WWII airplane mechanics were now assigned to the overhaul depot performing aircraft maintenance. Casper Army Air Base also played home to a single women's Air Force service pilot, WASP Doris Bristol, in 1944. WASPs were an elite group of less than 2,000 women pilots who served around the United States during the war. During her assignment to the air base, Doris Bristol towed gunnery targets in the air for gunners in training to shoot at, and also test flew newly repaired planes.
When it comes to learning your airplane and learning what to check, I can show you that. But making it a habit, that's up to you. And this is where you make it a habit. Right here where you begin your training as a B-17 pilot. You've got a nice new airplane to start on.
Training at Casper Army Air Base gave air crews a strong dose of high-altitude flying and operating in high wind conditions. Both of these skills would prove very useful for their combat assignments in Europe. The 211th Army Air Force Base Unit had been activated to operate the base and train bomb groups for overseas assignment and individual replacement bombardment combat crews. The base's mission was to take graduates from technical training and flying schools from all around the country, place them into 10-man crews, and train them to fly and operate B-24 aircraft. The training was difficult and realistic. In 10 to 12 weeks of training, the crews endured countless hours of advanced instruction in navigation, aerial and air-to-ground gunnery, bombing, armaments, flight engineering, and flying. In one record month, crews flew over 7,500 hours at Casper Army Air Base. Upon completion of their training, the 10-man crew would be shipped off to a B-24 factory, pick up a new bomber, and ferry it overseas, typically to the European theater of operations. Wyoming winters were especially tough on aircraft and personnel at the base. High winds and heavy snows created whiteout conditions hazardous to flight training, often canceling or altering flying schedules. Still, this severe weather was also part of the training, with the idea that if a crew could fly through this, they could handle anything they might encounter in Europe. 149 men and 1 woman perished in 90 plane crashes while training at the base between September 1942 and March 1945. When the first group of troops arrived at the base September 1, 1942, Casper Army Air Base was not ready to receive them, for Army cooks were absent. Word about this problem spread quickly through the small town of Casper, and the local residents came up with a plan to help. A group of women working at the base and other civilians in town rallied together, collected food, and started cooking in one of the large 300-man mess halls at the base. The base commander at the time, Colonel Moore, remarked how happy the men were to receive such hospitality. The ladies of the Grand Chapter of the Order of the Eastern Star of Wyoming caught wind of the base's need for more ambulances and crash trucks and decided to see what they could do to help. They raised money from the community and purchased an ambulance to donate to the base in August of 1943. This ambulance had also been fitted with an oxygen tank to treat crewmen who had been exposed to noxious fumes during crashes. This was an innovative medical approach during World War II. The Natrona County High School's ROTC program also became involved with the base, attending numerous functions and receiving special guided tours of the base's facilities. By February of 1945, the Army Air Forces transitioned strictly to training B-29 Superfortress crews for the anticipated invasion of Japan. Bases such as Casper Army Air Base that did not train B-29s were closed. In 1946, the Wyoming Air Guard was organized at Casper. But Casper Army Air Base's service was not finished, for air relief operations from the blizzard of '49 were based from the same runways that once trained B-24 crews to drop bombs on Germany. Operation Haylift saved innumerable livestock and helped isolated ranchers throughout the state. On November 6, 1949, the Casper Army Air Base property was deeded over to the county and the Natrona County Municipal Airport opened on its grounds. The airport has become the Casper-Natrona County International Airport. Today, the U.S. Air Force, Air National Guard, and Civil Air Patrol continue to use Casper for training, and the airport is a major economic contributor to the cowboy state. Casper Army Air Base became Casper's answer for employment and economic prosperity, and filled the people of Casper with a strong sense of patriotism. Casper Army Air Base's official history noted, "True Western hospitality was experienced almost invariably by the Army men. Casper, Wyoming wouldn't have it any other way."